Please welcome Laura Martin, Managing Director at Needham & Company for today's keynote presentation.
Hi. So I'm not here to sell you anything, but I am going to try to piss you off. What I mean is that I get paid to say things no one else is saying, and my favorite part of my job is no one can fire me. Right now we're in print saying that we think Zuckerberg needs to lose his job. No, you can't fire him because he has super voting rights, but no one, before I publish every report, there's a checkbox that says, the opinions in this note are yours, and I sign every single one. So no one, I'm allowed to have wrong opinions, but I get paid to have opinions. So what I want is where you please, I hear it's a really engaged audience, so I'm gonna give you a lot of time for questions. You're gonna get my candid review. If I'm wrong, if you guys know more than me, which is likely, I want you to find me. I'm gonna be here till 3. I want you to find me and say, Laura, you're wrong about this or that. Because what I love the most about my job, other than the fact I can't be fired, is that I really like learning new stuff. And you guys are experts, and I'm not. I'm from the top down, so I'm really interested in all the insights where you guys disagree with me. Because it's like stand-up comedy. I want to be smarter. You guys can make me smarter. So let's start. Let's start here. This is what I do. These are the companies I publish reports on. Buy, sell, hold. I have to have a point of view. And the name of this piece today is What's New and What's Next. So we're going to answer what's next. As you guys, if you have any money in the market, you've noticed your portfolio is getting crushed. I cover ad-driven stocks. Almost every streaming company is about to be an ad-driven stock, which we've been writing about for 2 years. Basically the market is crushing them. Trade Desk, which probably isn't on this list, but just to give you an order of magnitude, Trade Desk is the leading, largest ad tech platform, has gone from a 36 multiple of earnings to 13. So that is indicative of, you've seen if you cover Roku, if you follow Roku or Vizio, they're all down 70%. Round numbers, 70% in the last 12 months. So the market is telling you what's next is we're going into recession with high inflation. That's called stagflation. That is what the market's telling you. And that is the market's job, is to look forward and discount cash flows. So these are the companies I publish on that I think are interesting to you. I cover 30 total, but I also cover Alphabet, which technically its ticker symbol is Google, Meta, which is for the company formerly known as Facebook. I cover Amazon, and I cover Apple. So I cover the largest tech companies on earth, and specifically I really come at them, with a streaming prism, actually. But so I publish, buy, sell, hold. I'm in print. Everything I say up here is published somewhere because that's required. I have to publish it first before I'm allowed to say it. I don't get paid to equivocate. I don't get paid to say it depends. I get paid to have a point of view. It doesn't have to be right. It has to be thoughtful, and it has to make you think. And if you hate it, good. That's my job. To be a weak signal and make you hate my ideas, maybe not me, but hate my ideas and push at me, because that makes me smarter. It makes me better for the next person. Okay, let's talk about this. Change the world. This quarterly earnings, sorry I didn't put the date, this quarterly earnings changed the world. We have been saying for 2 years that Netflix had to have an ad platform because it was arrogant to think that you could charge $18 and assume consumers could pay. It was just arrogance. Okay, they came out on this call. They reported, excluding Russia, which they shut down, a 500,000 sub ad, but their reported ads were down 200,000. That was compared to the 2.5 million that they had projected. And in the next quarter, meaning the quarter we're in now, ended June, they're projecting negative growth. Stock fell 40% in a day, I think, and it's down 60%. So we had to sell. This is a call where we were right. Unfortunately, we were wrong during COVID, but we were right on that day. So the point of this, here's what happened. What I missed was that when this happened, when I was right that Netflix had to have an ad-driven tier because it had to give consumers choice, because not every consumer earns $100,000 and can pay $18 for their streaming service, Wall Street basically had an existential crisis. What are streaming? How big is the market? Is the total addressable market smaller than we thought? Because we just somehow thought that Netflix was going to grow forever. That turned out to be wrong. Uh-oh, is the whole market smaller? I just happen to think there's more competition and they're better at it than Netflix. Okay. Are the lifetime value per customer lower, or is ARPU lower? And are there any winners in streaming? This is the question that I debate the most with the institutional investors that I call on, are there any winners? I mean, Disney's saying they're going to lose $1 billion. Netflix, we know, spends $17 billion a year and has negative cash flow. Like right now, every company that's doing streaming is losing money. And I'm talking companies like Paramount and Discovery. Like, I cover the big public companies, right? So the question Wall Street asked is there any money to be made in streaming? Or is this just a fool's errand and all we're doing is wasting capital? Because that is Wall Street's job, is to allocate capital. So we don't like allocating capital to businesses that actually don't make money in the end. We don't mind monopolies. We don't mind buying your way into a monopoly. That we think is smart. But if you're not going to make money in the end, we are going to withhold capital from you. We're going to drive your share price down, which increases your cost of capital, which makes you then have to earn profits. Okay, and should this is the biggest change since these Netflix numbers. Should Reed Hastings be fired? Never brought up before. He was the smartest guy in the room, and Netflix was the smartest guys, the group. And they believed that too, and I think Wall Street believed that. But when you have numbers like this, and then you miss your numbers by 2 million, you now guide to lower estimates, and you have no explanation, and your solution is, well, now we're going to crack down on password sharing, which has been a problem forever, and now we're going to add an ad-driven tier, but we're going to, like, haven't really thought about it. It's almost like you made it up on the call. Like, without real solutions, like, we get it. Business is hard. You know, competing with Disney is hard. Competing with Zaslav, who's moving to LA, who's probably the highest EQ person in Hollywood right now, that's hard. We get that. And things go wrong. But to not have a action plan, like to not be a general on the field and say, okay, we got flanked here, here's what we're doing, that Wall Street isn't really amused by. So that's what's going on right now. We're talking about, less important is should Reed Hastings get fired, really? More important, does streaming ever make money? Is it actually a business or is it a hobby? YouTube's a hobby, it loses money, we calculate. But you know, it's a hobby that's supported by Google search, which is probably the best business of all time. So, okay, they want to not make money on YouTube. I would like to see YouTube spun off, because then Wall Street, people like me, who really get paid to be assholes, are like, why aren't you making more money? We want to understand why you're not, why aren't you fired? Like, this is the kind of question, you don't want to be a CEO and be covered by people like me, we're really mean. But anyway, but YouTube, we would really, I think YouTube would do better not under the Google umbrella, because they just get checks from Google search. So 2 weeks ago, I did a talk to the top 50 managers at Peacock, and I would say 7 years ago, I did one for YouTube, and they of course, approved of my slides, and they said, take out these financial slides. I said, I'm a Wall Street analyst. Take out the financial slides. What are you talking about? They go, well, no one in the no one in the room has like purview over money, like power over money. I said, well, wait, how do you fund the business? They're like, Google search just writes us a check. You're like, okay, a business that actually isn't a business. It doesn't have to make money. That was sort of eye-opening. Okay, let's talk about, so our talk today is what's new and what's next. Okay, this is new. We got some new stuff compared to this. Yesterday, let me start with yesterday's news, right? Snap down 40% because they warned. So a month ago, they gave us guidance. Yesterday, Monday night, they gave us guidance. They weren't going to hit their guidance from a month earlier. Things are getting worse, so that's totally new. All of the stocks took a hit. Why? Is Snap the canary in the coal mine? Is it all bad? So that's new. Also newer than this slide, you saw Amazon closing 10 million square feet of warehouse space, and they came on their call and they said, we've overhired, we've overbuilt, we overspent by $6 billion, and we will try to get that back $2 billion a quarter for the next 3 quarters. And we've got a new guy there. This isn't Jeff Bezos. This is Jaffe, right, the cloud guy. Really competent operator, and the culture at Amazon is best in class. But they overspent by $6 billion. That's sort of a bad miss for Wall Street. Like, we allocate capital. This guy's telling us he wasted $6 billion of our capital. We don't love that idea. But yesterday they said they're closing 10 million warehouses. You're going to see them laying off people. That's supply chain. They can't deliver stuff if they can't get it because China's shut down. So part of that's out of his control. But part of it is part of it is like optimism, and he overspent. So yesterday, Apple news, you probably saw. So Apple, you guys may know, every September they release a new iPhone once a year. So the 13 was last year. In theory, September of this year, they'll release the iPhone 14. Came out in the news, I think this morning, maybe it was yesterday. China, so much of it is closed. Apple's saying, look, you guys need to get your designs to us, blah, blah, or we're not going to have a 14 deliverable or, in September. And I think that is the reality this year. Supply chain's getting worse, not better, because of the China shutdowns, lockdowns, I think. So those are all more recent. And in the Q&A, I'm going to make this short because I really want to hear your questions. I hear you're a super engaged audience, and I'd much rather answer what you care about. But if somebody else has something new that they think is important that I've missed, I have blind spots because I only cover 30 companies. So you guys have a broader point of view. If there's something you think is important that I didn't bring up other than this and the new stuff that I'm thinking off the top of my head from the news in the last couple of days, please, tell us, tell the audience that why you think it's important. So again, Snap is the bellwether. Snap is very candid. Evan is a billionaire. I think he's probably 31 by now, and he's worth billions of dollars, and no one can fire him because he has super voting. In fact, the public shareholders have 0 votes. That's rare. He has 100% of the votes, and he retains control of the company 6 months after his dead. Like, I don't know how you do that. I've never seen that before. Anyway, he's very unabashed about what he discloses because you can't do anything about it. You can either buy his shares or not, but he basically has told you, I'm king of the mountain, my way or the highway. So Snap is very candid about what's going on. So they do tend to lead maybe other more politically astute CEOs. Because he can't be fired either. You saw Discovery, you guys know that, shut down CNN Plus, and on their call, they were like, we're going to make hard decisions, which was code for we're going to shut down money-losing things. And that's what Wall Street wants to hear right now. We don't like things that lose money right now. Oh, by the way, in case you guys don't know, the market window's closed. You can't raise money in the equity markets, period, full stop. And the thing that I think a lot of my CEOs don't understand is that when equity markets close and you can't raise money, a lot of time those bank lines that you thought you have disappear because the bank debt really wants to be sure that equity can bail them out in case. So basically, my opinion, all capital markets are closed. You cannot raise money from my markets. Might last 2 months, might last to the end of the year. And that means there are companies, you get more mergers because there are companies that run out of cash. VC funding ended. One of the things, I did a conference last week, and I had 2 CEOs tell me that in the last 2 weeks, all of their engineers have stood down. They said their engineers were demanding, in order to hire an engineer from another company, they were asking for electric vehicles. They were asking for stay at home permanently and have lunch delivered to their home every day of their choice. Like these and huge demands on it. They said the last 2 weeks stopped because VCs have stopped hiring software engineers for crypto and for Web3. Stopped. Facebook's rescinding offers. Facebook did a hiring freeze, you probably read about that. I had a couple CEOs on stage tell me that they are rescinding offers from their college kids, that the college kids thought he was going to work at Facebook in a month. They've said, you don't have an offer here anymore. So the point is, engineering resources are starting to free up, lead indicator to a recession, lead indicator to better, easing labor markets, but lead indicator to equity markets aren't opening anytime soon. Those are connected. You saw that Amazon Prime, it took them 14 months to close this deal. It was a tiny deal. Amazon's a $2 trillion company. They had trouble closing an $8 billion library deal in a business they're not really even in or inconsequentially. And the regulators just don't want these fangs to get bigger. They think they're too big already. And then Apple Plus, I'm on the record as saying I think Apple is doing a bad job of content. Having said that, they make $90 billion a year. So it is my opinion that if Apple decides to compete with you, you lose because they have unlimited resources. They can be incompetent at making content and being in streaming for a decade. The day they decide to become competent, hire the right people, make the right deals, they can kill you. They can put everybody out of business because they do $90 billion of free cash flow a year. And they have a monopoly on the 15% wealthiest people on earth. That is their monopoly. Okay, so that's what's new. Let's talk about this. You probably have seen this. This is content creation. Way too much is getting funded. These are bad returns on capital. And this goes to this question of, are we, meaning Wall Street, equity markets, overfunding content? Well, if the equity market is closed and we, Wall Street, are demanding you make profits, you're not going to see this level of content. So all you in the content businesses, sign up your deals now, because these companies are about to run out of money unless they have a sister subsidiary that can fund. Disney can fund its streaming losses. It's got other businesses. Oh my God, the theme park business, all-time high margins. They are charging, it's $1,000 right now to go to Disneyland for a family of 4. I mean, their prices are through the roof. This is also super important to Wall Street, but also very interesting. This is in 2021. In 2021, if you look at the percent of the streaming budget compared to the engagement of the total hours, what you see is, sure enough, Netflix spent 35%, had 35% engagement, but the percent of content releases was 57%. Wall Street doesn't like this number. This is a shitty return on investment. Look at Disney, the next one. 5% of content by releases, 29% of total engagement. Wall Street likes that number. But now let's look at HBO Max, which I think is quite interesting. 11% and 23%. If I'm funding this as Wall Street, like right now Wall Street's funding nothing, but as an assessment of how I feel about management, stewardship of capital, I really like HBO Max and I really like Disney. Disney more structurally, I think that everything at HBO Max will get better under the tutelage of David Zaslav. I think they run a good business. His CFO is best in class. I expect them to get twice the synergies, just like they did with the Scripps acquisition that they're admitting to. And then I think they'll buy Paramount 2 years from now, maybe 3, in my opinion. That's a controversial take. Okay, let's go here. It's SVOD saturation. So I'm a big believer in AVOD. Why? Free always wins. It has to win. It has the biggest total addressable market. And I think, I'm going to say people are poor. You know, what I mean by that is everyone in this room is wearing designer clothes and gets paid a lot of money. That just isn't the American experience. So I do think people sometimes don't make as much tips as they want and they have to go to a free service. I think Peacock has got this right. Free service, ad light, rich month, you can pay the ad-free. I think you need to give consumers that ability to have a bad month in their tips and go down to free. Have a better month and go to ad light and have, you know, best in class and have a ad-free service. Or just for rich people, have an ad-free service, fine. But the notion that you have one tier, I think is flawed. I think everyone will end up with 2 tiers. And by the way, replicates the cable bundle. Right, Wall Street loves dual revenue streams. Why? Because if you have a single revenue stream, our worst nightmare is you open the Wall Street Journal in the morning and it says, ad blocking is the new black. And you're like, oh shit, 100% of my revenue just was at risk. Like Wall Street hates that kind of thing. So Wall Street wants you to have a subscription model, which gives you downside protection, but not really upside margin, and an ad-driven model, which has 80% upside margins, when advertising's working. Okay, it's not working today, but if you have subscription revenue, you're not going to 0. So Wall Street really likes multiple revenue streams. We will actually give you 3 to 4 multiple points premium if you have multiple revenue streams. So every dollar is not worth the same. If you're an ad-driven business and you have another ad dollar, it is not as valuable as having an ad-driven business and taking $1 of subscription revenue, or $1 of TVOD revenue, or $1 of e-commerce revenue. That dollar of the new revenue stream is worth more to you on Wall Street than another dollar of the same type of revenue stream. Okay, what this is talking about is subscription fatigue. So I gave you the global numbers because while I really focus on the US, as you guys all know, streaming is really a global business. So what I thought was interesting was India. I was actually shocked by these numbers in India. So what this says is 31% of US have 1 to 2 services, 32% have 3 to 4, 15% have 5 to 6, and over here, way over here, 15% of people in America have nothing. Look at India. 9% have nothing. What the heck? You know, so they just have a lot of streaming services in India. That was shocking. I was shocked America wasn't the highest. And anyway, and this is new data. It comes from March of 2022. Can't get much newer than that. But anyway, what you see is there are ecosystems or countries like Japan. 54% of people have no streaming service. Like, that's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. So just, there's something going on in Japan. Okay, Russia, not really fair because, you know, they're at war with the Ukraine and everyone's embargoing them. Okay, France, almost no streaming services. China, number might be suspect. Let's not use it. Then the rest of these, you know, are like the 25%. So global business, that's interesting. India, interesting numbers. And Japan sort of feels like walk away. Do something cultural going on there. I don't know. I just think that too many SVOD services says the time is right for more AVOD. This is something really important to me. It really bothers me a lot when people and articles and press talk about linear versus streaming. I think that is an artificial construction. That is not how the consumer lives his life. What this chart shows is that during COVID, video gameplay took 400 basis points away from television. So the consumer isn't just about linear TV versus streaming. The consumer is about his 24-hour day, his or her 24-hour day. And video games are dominating young men under 25. Snap too. Snapchat is really important to 18 to 25-year-olds, but this notion that somehow linear and streaming is the right, you know, the right, I just don't agree. And when we talk about the metaverse, the importance of that idea, I think, is that the metaverse is a concept, I think, that these kids that for 2 years of their life, if they're 18-year-olds, that's like 20% of their life, 10% of their life, lived in the digital world fully. When they come out of digital reality and go back to school, they don't lose the notion that their life is their life, except 5 hours a day is lived in a screen, is lived in the digital world. They don't think of that as TV, they think of that as their life. So the importance of the metaverse, I don't think of it as Facebook's definition with those goggles. I think the notion to me of the metaverse is that there's this continuum of the physical world and the digital world, and the 18-year-old young man doesn't think of the difference. To him, that's just reality. So if you want to be a brand like Nike or Gucci, you have to sell him things in both worlds. You can't just sell him things in the physical world. You can't just sell him things in the digital world. His reality is 5 hours of digital world followed by 12 hours in the physical world. So that metaverse idea, that's the importance of that idea to me. Okay, so here's our conclusions. This thing that we're losing the youth to video games, no one's winning. Linear TV isn't winning, streaming isn't winning. Young men who are a key demographic, and as they age up, I do not expect, my opinion, I do not expect these consumer habits to change. We're losing them to the video game space. Let's call it the interactive space. If you don't like the word gaming, whether it's Roblox or Minecraft, they want to have interactivity. And this notion of linear storytelling, less important to them. This top-down, Spielberg's a genius storyteller, let's tell a story, okay. But that isn't their reality. They want to have an influence, my opinion, on this interactive and immersive symphony with or without glasses. AVOD beats SVOD, you know that's my opinion, because free always has a larger total addressable market. I think film studio brands win. I think you have to have a film release to hire the best talent. I think the best directors, actors, there are stories that are best told on a big screen. How many people in this room saw the new Batman, the brand new Batman, out in the last 3 months? Right, great. Well, my brother says it's like black on black. The whole thing is black on black. And it's a 3-hour film, which means they walked away from 2 showings a night. Somebody at Warner, the director, said, I have to have a 3-hour and 15-minute movie, even though it cuts the revenue in half, because you can only have 1 showing a night. So I'm like, okay, we're doing black on black because the symbolism of the storytelling is important, and Gotham is basically a big, dark, black place. I went to the IMAX, one of the best Batman I've ever seen, my opinion. Just, you know, my opinion, best Batman film I've ever seen, in an IMAX. When I get it home to my OLED screens, and I have OLED screens at home, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to see that film. It's just all black all the time. It's just different shades of black. I'm so happy I saw it on an IMAX screen. So great artwork, you know, I got a 3-hour black movie and every now and then I can see a face. I'm happy I saw it on IMAX. I don't think I can ever be able to watch it again at home. Anyway, the point is I think you need films. You need the revenue from films. There's never been a big brand that's been created from streaming so far. You need the big screen, my opinion. I think the big screen is going to come back and be just as important as it was before. And it's an extra revenue stream. I just told you, Wall Street likes multiple revenue streams. Wall Street likes the film business just because it's different than streaming, different from VOD, different from TVOD. Okay, streaming's mature, so retention is key. Bundling, pricing tiers, loyalty programs, sports, news, reality, I think you gotta have it all. It's gonna look just like the linear TV bundle. It's not gonna be different, in my opinion. The great rebundling is coming. We're gonna get consolidations. Love pricing tiers, I already told you that. And losing the streaming wars is a winning strategy. I think Paramount's a $30 billion company, too small. So the best way to win is to sell, is to lose. Just say, we're out, we're selling to Discovery, we're selling to somebody bigger. So I think that's the way to win the streaming wars. Let's raise the house lights and take some questions. I've got a bunch of time left. And please disagree with me. That's what I live for. If you want to be on my research list, just text me or email me, and I can add you to some research. Anyway, questions? Yeah, go.
Okay, thank you. So is it your understanding that is it a multiple reason? Is it the fact that TikTok is just acquiring all of Snap's customers? What is it you feel?
No, TikTok is actually taking customers from Facebook, and it's taking customers from YouTube, which are much bigger businesses than Snap, actually. Snap is primarily an iPhone-driven, so wealthy, consumer in America, and it's a still camera. TikTok is incredibly effective at video, and so, of course, TikTok's taking attention, let's call it an attention metric, like if that's the currency, attention, but it's taking the most attention from its direct competitor, which is YouTube, short video, and Facebook, because TikTok is social and shared. No, TikTok skews more like YouTube, older, not just young. And you're right about Snap. Snap really stops at 25. They say they have like 80% penetration of 15 to 25, and they have 70% penetration up to 34. I call shenanigans on that second statistic. But TikTok really does skew, like lots of old people like me actually engage in TikTok, not so much Snap, I would say. No, they're much more formidable as a force for ad revenue competition and for time than just hurting Snap. Like they're much bigger impact, negative, much more competitive against much bigger business models, not just Snap.
Hi, that was an awesome keynote, so thank you.
Thank you.
I want to try.
Did I piss you off? I just want to know. If I didn't piss you off, I haven't done my job. Ask me something.
You said a lot of nice things about the company I work for, so appreciate it. But
Darn.
I do want to get you to start talking a little bit. For all of us, I think we're interested in your point of view about Netflix and AVOD. You mentioned Wall Street loves monopolies. You mentioned a couple of mergers that you thought would be interesting. Can you speak a little bit about possible mergers that might make sense to bring ad support to Netflix in a smart way?
So if I was Reed Hastings, and I'm not, because I think there is still a chance he's the smartest guy in the room, which means things I can think of, like he can do better. If I were him, just knowing what I know is, let me say I'm an editor, like I can look at, okay, what I would do is I would absolutely hire Magnite tomorrow, and there's an ad unit you can put at the top half of the page that takes 3 months to execute, and it's 50% of Vizio's revenue. It's called their hero banner, but it's basically the top half of the Vizio big CTV screen, and that is where a lot of Netflix content is consumed. $30 cost per thousand. $30 to $100 cost per thousand, depending on the ad unit. They could get into the revenue. That's the only way they could actually get ad revenue in 6 months. And if I were them, I would do it because I think their sub losses are going to get worse, which means Wall Street's going to take their stock down more. So that's what I would do first. If I were them, I would get Magnite to do programmatic top half of their page, which takes, it's tacky, but anyway, it would get them a bunch of ad units. It's a lot harder to start doing in, mid-rolls. That's actually super technologically hard. But they have a lot of viewing, and they're going to have a lot of ad units flooding the market. So I would do that, and that would then get their revenue back up. The reason I'm not telling them to buy or sell is their stock's really depressed. It's down like 60% from 30 seconds ago, from like the first quarter.
Right.
So I wouldn't have them lock in using the shares at today's price to buy Roku or to buy something. at this share price. If I were them, what I would first do is get some ads, because once they start getting advertising, Wall Street will take their stock back up because they've got 2 revenue streams. Yep. So we will give them multiple points for that. Now their stock's back up. Now they can go and buy Paramount if Sherry Redstone will sell to them, or they can look at, now they've got a share they can use to, it's more valuable to buy something that's like cheaper, because Roku's down 70%, everything else is down 70-80%. But they need to get, if I was them, I'd want to get my share price up first, which means I need to have that second revenues, the promise of that second revenue stream first, and then I would have them buy something. They need deep library, they need news, they need sports, and they need advertising. So, but if I were them, at this share price, they're too big to be sold, and who needs them? All they have is license rights. They own almost no library product. So it would be bad for any of my other stocks. If Disney said they were buying Netflix, it would be bad for the Walt Disney Company stock. If Paramount, which is way too small, like most companies are too small to buy Netflix, but it would be bad for these other stocks because they sort of own nothing and they lose a lot of money.
And you think it would be bad for Roku because they're so depressed?
So, well, Roku's not big enough to buy.
No, the other way around.
Yeah. The reason I'm going to go with hard no at the 90% level, Netflix spun out Roku in the first place. Anthony Wood bought it from Netflix. So to then buy it back at 5 times, 12 times what they spun it out for, it basically reads saying, I'm an idiot. I mean, and men have trouble with that. Like that. I don't know why. So I don't think that happens because of the egos. By the way, I think it's possible Wall Street fires Reed Hastings. I think that's possible if he doesn't start to learn faster. I mean, they should be doing weekly. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff they should be learning, but they've got that Silicon Valley thing like Apple, like not invented here. If we didn't invent it, it must not be good. I call shenanigans on that. Yes, sir.
I came in a little bit late. Can you explain number 8, losing the streaming war? I don't quite understand what you mean by that.
So I think that Paramount, for example, is too small to win the streaming wars. I think at the end there are 3 general entertainment services, and then there are specific, let me call it fandoms. WWE will survive, right? Like that's a fandom. I think there'll be fandoms, and those will be, I think every host will have 2 or 3 fandoms, like specialized. Acorn might be a fandom, that kind of thing. But I think there'll only be 3, let me say 3. General purposes entertainment. I don't think Netflix is one of those, and I do not think Paramount is big enough to be one of those. So I think Paramount needs to merge. I would argue that Peacock doesn't need to be either, but they have enough sister subsidiaries, they can stay a weak stepsister and just subsidize the losses. But at the end of the day, Comcast is running a business, and you know, they either have to buy and bulk up, or they have to sell. So right now, if you said, Laura, who's the winners? I think that Disney, the Walt Disney Company, they are already giving discounts at the park if you're streaming, and vice versa. You go to the park, they give you a discount streaming. Smart bundling, smart marketers. I don't know how good they are at content. We can argue that. They are really good at marketing, best in class. Disney wins. I think under Zaslav, it is quite possible he becomes my number 2 choice. What? Discovery, Warner Brothers under David Zaslav, the EQ emperor of the streaming world right now. And you need one of those. Iger's gone. The new guy, not so much, given what's happening in Florida. I think David Zaslav is the EQ king of the mountain sitting over, and I think that matters in the content world. So those would be my first 2, and I think I'm forgetting one, but I can't remember. But I don't think Netflix, and I think Paramount's too small, which means I think they need to sell out to somebody for their library. I said Apple is doing a shit job so far. I said the day they decide to do good work, they can kill everybody. But so far, they're dabbling. Amazon's a winner. Why? Sister subsidiaries, they never need to make money from streaming. It's so small. Yeah, we value their streaming assets. And actually, because they have Twitch, which I think is a big deal, we value their media plus their cloud businesses at more than the entire market cap of the company. I need to go. I'm out of time. I'm here until 3. I'm in the first row. Just come find me. Thank you. Bye.
Please welcome our next panel for a discussion about brand integration. Michelle Fino, head of branded entertainment at Crackle Plus, Chris Kelly.